Okay. One of the things we want to do is go over the text and make sure that people are on the same page on the text. And another is to go to the yellow cab case. Because the assignment refers to it, but does not give a citation. And Nicoletta found the citation for it. So we want to differentiate between contributory and comparative negligence, and explain the collateral source rule. The yellow cab case, we are using it. We're using that case as a source in the written work. Questions so far? So what are we doing? We're researching this case out of California, but this does not have the citation there. And why are we researching it? Basically to get some background for our client, Mary Jones. To understand how to help Mary Jones, we need to understand more about three or four things. We need to know more about comparative versus contributory negligence. Absolute contributory negligence is really bad for our client. If it was still absolute in our case, that creates a lot of problems for Mary, since Mary is partially at fault. So that defense would work wonderfully against Mary and hurt our client really badly if there's no comparison, because Mary might be 20% at fault. If she loses the entire case, instead of losing 20% of her benefits from the case, she's in a big trouble. We're hoping that the most she loses is 20% of her case. This is not requiring you to do a huge amount of research in your home state, but I still think those of you that are sort of ready for it, I think it would pay to do so, to do some research in your home state as opposed to just using this older case in one state. But you want to know the difference between contributory and comparative negligence. So how much better off would Mary be under comparative versus contributory? And so you use this to get the basic answer, use this case, and then use the text. And here's page 126 of the text. And it talks about what an affirmative defense is and what contributory is. Contributory, like I say, is if the defendant is partially negligent themselves, if the plaintiff is partially negligent, they lose. It bars their recovery. Now there's some exceptions to that, which is called the last clear chance. but the last clear chance is not good enough. So a lot of oh, here we go. This is Lee versus Yellow Cab Company, it says here on page 129. Not live, L-I, okay. And here's another citation for the same thing. This is just a different volume, 532 p. second, 1226. Okay. So we're looking at the text for contributory and comparative, and we're also looking at the that particular, excuse me. I want to go to the other thing now. I want to go to Lexis. We do not want to go to that. Let's try this. Keep going to the wrong thing. I got to eliminate some of the stuff up here. Okay. There we go. .532 p. second, 1226. Not that wrong. 1226. 1226, not 526. Lee v. Yellow Cab Company. So you can look at it in the text, but you can get a better idea of it here. Plus, here you get a case summary, and you get the head notes here. So if you want more just from a contributory negligent, you can search for cited authority just on head note 1. You could search and find out only from your home state too. Is anybody seeing what I'm showing on Lexis? I just put in the citation up here and then I got it. Okay, and then if I wanted to find citing decisions, I could go to citing decisions on shepherding, or I could go to what's called shepherdize this document. And I'll get way too much, but then I can narrow it. So let's say, now California has the most, but let's say I went to my home state and there's only 2 cases in Minnesota. So I could narrow it only to Minnesota. Does that help? And I could remove that narrowing by Xing it out. Then I could decide that I want multiple, but I only want the brand new ones that are from the last few years. Let's say the last 5 years. I still have 41. Then I decide that I only want the ones that are where the other court followed it. Now I've got it down to 4. And you're likely going to get only California ones because those are the ones that have to follow this court. Or, well, actually, Kentucky Supreme Court claims that they followed it. Okay. Questions, problems with what I did there? Yes, the yellow cab says, yes. Yeah, we're just trying to see where our sources are of contributory and comparative, and basically use the text, chapter 6, and go to the case in the text, Lee versus yellow cab. And then we can find other cases once we found that case using Shepard. I'm not sure if I can get you to the text without leaving and coming back. Can you see the text? Okay. So page 129 is got a summary of the Lee case right there. And then it has a lot of other materials. And you go to the chapter headings, basically, and just get started on it. Affirmative defenses means that the defense has to actually bring some proof of it. It's not a passive defense where you can just say that the plaintiff didn't prove it. You have to actually bring the defense and prove the defense. But try to use these pages near the beginning to clearly show the difference between comparative and contributory and make sense of it. And then there's different, in comparative fault, there's somewhat different ideas, 51-49, 50-50, and so on. And then here's other, there's other defenses and so on. Another thing they wanted you to talk about is on page 91, collateral source rule and subrogation. And those sound intimidating, but they're not as bad as they sound. They're contradictory. The collateral source rule sounds like the opposite of subrogation. Collateral source more or less says that damages don't need to be reduced. But subrogation more or less takes away what collateral source gives, but not entirely. So collateral source does give you some double recoveries, but subrogation in some cases takes away the double recovery. It says Social Security takes away double recovery, but I don't believe that it really does. Not Social Security disability. Disability is a different thing. It's an insurance scheme all its own, and I don't think that, let's say that you recover something for lost wages, I don't think that Social Security disability is going to turn around and take that away. But if a person gets paid the same exact medical bills by two sources, that is not going to end up being double recovery. Workers' compensation and some of those others, if it ends up paying certain bills, that is not going to be double recovered, but other things are going to be kind of a double recovery. On the theory that they really aren't a double recovery, though. Social Security disability, I believe, is not considered a double recovery. Okay? There's a 50% rule. There's a reasonable standard rule. 50% basically, you need to know at what point, if Mary is only 20% at fault, these particularized rules are not really going to affect her. It's just whether she gets comparative or not. Does she get her 80% or does she get nothing? That's what you're really concerned about. Yeah, some things are not reduced, but others are, like medical bills. Do go back to the insurance company that first paid if the other one is basically liable, the other insurance company. IRAC is issue, rule, application, and conclusion. Written assignment is Mary Jones plaintiff, Lee versus Yellow Cab Company. You create a memorandum. Do include collateral source and subrogation. Discussion is different because this is, well, I understand that, but all I can do is kind of do the highlighting. I understand where you're coming from. I can try to start fresh a little bit. Let's say Mary or somebody else can basically prove negligence. Act was careless and resulted in harm that should be compensated in dollars, okay? So we have a duty to Mary, to drive carefully, not injure anyone, a breach of duty, causation, approximate cause. Are you following this so far? Is this making sense? Okay. Approximate cause, which basically means cause makes sense in fairness, foreseeable, and then you have harm to Mary. But then, of course, the next question is, but isn't there a defense? Okay. Mary was putting on mascara while driving. Correct me if I'm wrong from the assignment, but it seems to me that's what the assignment says. Yeah. And it says she was late to work. Okay. So what's the defense? So then you have to ask, there's two defenses suggested, comparative. Comparative negligence, and then discuss differences. And then, of course, Mary, you and Mary's lawyer are thinking she is 20% liable. Okay. Okay. How's that? Can you guys read this whiteboard? Okay. So that's basically what we're doing. This is the hard assignment this week. There is also a quiz. Well, yes. But you're going to use facts, issue, answer, reasoning, conclusion. But I don't know why we're doing that when we could have just used Iraq, but I will accept Iraq too. Seems to me it'll take more than 2 pages. It says 2 to 3 pages, but don't care about the heading. Not really worried about the heading. What I'm concerned about is that you you use the sources to really analyze this. The 2 other topics, collateral source and subrogation. I don't think is there anything even in here that tells you just how subrogation would work here? I don't see it. No. So collateral source and subrogation, you won't know the applications. You're just going to have to basically define them. Okay. So you're basically going to define those, okay? Collateral source and subrogation. What you're really working on the most is this, but you don't want to leave out these 2 other topics. You want to remind the lawyer basically that we may have to deal with that. We'll have to tell the lawyer that Mary may get a double recovery or may have subrogation problems. She can keep correct. Absolutely, you have to define them. You can't skip it. So you have page 91 and 92 of the text. We're using the book for most of it. Torts, it's hard to find enough cases to really come up with a brief summary of each concept you should know. And I do want you to leave some time for just reading too, because of there being a quiz. So you want to be able to do all the readings. And do the discussion. The railroad one. The quiz is 30 true-false questions. So you need to do the Module 1 and Module 2 readings. Okay, lesson content and text. And that's basically it. That is what to do. And there is no live classroom quiz for Module 2. There's the true-false quiz. Okay. Questions or problems that I can help anybody with? Definitely stuff from both weeks. I should type and Module 1. Yes, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Did what I typed show up on the page, Tia? And Tia and Nicoletta, is that? I think that's all we should cover. I'm stopping, so if you have other classes and whatever, give you more time to study. Thanks, folks.